Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to have my first guest on the podcast. We have Miss Queen Allie here.
Hello. I'm so excited to be here. I feel honored.
I'm so excited. This is the most perfect way to have my first guest in person here and with you. So before we jump in, I'd love you to just give a quick background on what you do. And then we'll jump into a little bit more about like how you got to where you are right now.
Yeah, totally. So essentially what I call myself is an intuitive energetic healer. And I don't even love that word, but I don't really know what else to say. Like when people ask me what I do, I'm like, I don't know. Here's my Instagram. Like go figure it out. But essentially what that is that I can communicate to souls both here on earth and souls who have crossed over. But with that, I can read energy. So I can read the energy radiating off of your electromagnetic field, off of your body. I can read the energy of higher self, of source. I'm not special. Anyone can learn to do this with the right tools. But essentially what I do is I can see where a soul is, where it wants to go, and I can help it get there by helping people unblock the limitations that kind of got put onto them growing up, right? We weren't born with those. We took those on from whoever raised us. And those things then get broadcasted out from our electromagnetic field, which I like to call our creator field, because our creator field is literally single-handedly what creates every single thing going on in our lives.
Yes.
So I essentially see what is radiating from there and broadcasting from there. And that is essentially stopping people from achieving, getting whatever it is that they have this soul pull to do. So in a nutshell, that's essentially what I'm doing.
Amazing. And I also wanted you to explain that because then you can explain also what I do in a succinct way, right?
Yes.
So thank you for that. And just context for everyone that doesn't know how I met Allie, and you can go back and listen to my first episode if you want more detail on this. But I found Allie on TikTok. My dad had passed away when I was younger, and I'd always wanted to book a medium read. I saw this beautiful queen on TikTok and I had to book a read. And I looked back at the dates. It was June 2022 that I originally booked the medium read. And I went back and listened to it because I wanted like the full details of like what went on in that session because it changed my entire life. I was going in like trying to get closure for my dad passing away, and it turned into like this full read of both my dad telling me what I needed to do and then like my higher self came in and my soul. And I'm going to put little clips in from this reading at the end of this because it was so good. But there was a point of it where you were like, are you an entrepreneur? And I was like, no. And you were like, well, you need to be. Your job is like sucking the life out of you. And we went into like future me. And I also looked back at when my second reading was with you, which it wasn't until February 2023, which is crazy. So in that time period, I was like going through my own healing, which like looking back, and we'll talk a little bit about like speeding up timelines and stuff. And that was something that I know my soul wanted to do because it wanted to go through that process of like healing itself. But I basically like put myself through like 8 months of extra hell, if you will, by like really releasing all these emotions. And I got a therapist, which kind of kept me stuck in the loop of like reliving all of the pain and the emotions so deeply that it took me to like finding you again on Instagram and being like, all right, I need to book another reading and like learn more about why she was saying that I need to be an entrepreneur, because I've always felt that my whole life. I just didn't feel that I ever had anyone who saw that. So this is why Allie is here. She has changed my entire life. So that is why I give the context, because this means so much to me. And you had a very similar experience with your mentor, Al. So would love to give just background too on like when you were younger to getting here now, and then we'll jump into other things.
Yeah. Okay. First of all, it's wild. It's only been 2 years, but not even, because really it's just been one that we've been like working together closely.
Yes.
And how far that you have come in that short amount of time is wild. Like the fact you've already held a retreat and people came to the retreat, like it's just wild. So you're sitting here like, oh yeah, a year ago. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
It's insane.
Crazy.
Insane. So, okay, with Al, who is the person that I really learned how to hone in my intuition from. So long story short, and a little bit of background on this is I started getting really serious. I used to train in dance and do competition and all of that kind of thing. And I started getting really serious about it around when I was like 15. And I remember I I graduated high school. I moved to New York City. Then I moved to LA. When I moved to LA, I was super broke. I was 19. I had no car. I lived in North Hollywood on Magnolia, living at NoHo Apartments. And one day I needed my hair done. Like I wanted to get it blonder. And I had no car, so I couldn't like drive anywhere far. But there was a hair salon like right underneath where I lived. So I just like was like, fuck it, I'm gonna go here. I walked in there and I said to the front desk guy, I said, hey, can you put me with someone who does blondes really well? And he like smiled and he was like, I know the perfect person to put you with. And I was like, okay, cool, dude. So I went to this girl, Caitlin. And now backstory, when I was 5, I predicted illness in my grandma before she knew about it. Then like 2 weeks later, she ended up finding out that she did have it. And then like I would talk to my grandfather at his own funeral, the whole thing. Well, I started then getting really embarrassed that this stuff would happen. And so I like shut it down. Anyway, I told no one about this ever. Like probably my parents a few times just because of like things that went on. But I was just confused because I thought everyone could hear my grandfather at his own funeral. Yeah. I was like, I just assumed everyone could hear him. I was confused that they couldn't. So I then started being like ashamed and like just wanting to fit in and the whole shebang. So anyway, now fast forward, I'm 19 and this girl, Caitlin's doing my hair. I start fucking word vomiting and word dumping every single experience I've ever had onto her. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like, I have no idea why I'm telling you this. I've never told people this. And she like smiled and laughed. She goes, I know why. She's like, I want you to come meet my intuitive healer. I'm like, what the fuck is that? Like, I have no idea. Even though I'm like feeling energy or knowing things, I didn't really know what I was doing or how or what it was fucking called. So she was like, I need you to come meet my intuitive healer. And I was like, okay, whatever. And at the time, he was holding these in-person classes. It sounds like so weird. On a Sunday night, just like in a like workout studio he'd run out. And so we'd all sit around in a circle and like on mats. And it sounds a little weird now, but like it wasn't. Like you were just going to learn. You're like, what kind of fucking cult is he having? But you were just going to like learn cool shit. So I go and I remember seeing him for the first time. And I met Caitlin in the parking lot before we walked up. And Caitlin was like, Al, this is Allie. And Caitlin was like, Allie's really special. And I was like, I don't know what the fuck this girl is like talking about. And Al just like smiled and looked at me. He goes, that makes sense. I can tell. He goes, I know. And I was like, again, like, this is fucking weird. I have no idea what's going on. And I'm not special. Everyone's special. But like, she was just meaning like, because I was telling her all of this stuff that was going on. So anyway, I don't remember what exactly the first class was, but I just knew I had to keep going back because he was talking about, oh, if you learn to heal your self-image, if you learn to value yourself, if you learn to essentially feel about yourself the way you want other people to feel about you, you can hack life. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I can keep going to these classes and I can learn to manifest the dance jobs that I want, the professional dance career that I want. Like I'm tired of working really, really, really hard and these people who are doing like cocaine on the fucking weekends, like not caring, you know, getting called out in class to film the video on the red wall at Millennium Dance Studio and I'm not. Like, what's the deal with that? And so I was like, oh, I can hack the system. So I keep going back. I start to heal stuff intuitively from like trauma from the past, from my dad and from family members and from all these things that I've experienced. And then I start slowly just like not wanting to dance anymore. And then I'm like on my dream dance job and I'm like dancing backup for a pop artist. And I'm like, why am I miserable? And I'm like, this is what I thought was my dream. And it turned out I never actually wanted to dance because it was a soul pull. I wanted to dance because I could get validation from it. And when I started healing my self-image, you'd be shocked when you start healing your self-image, you start not wanting to do the things that used to validate you. You start not wanting to pursue the entertainment career. You start not wanting to graduate college. You start not caring if you have a fucking degree or a piece of paper saying that you did good. And so then I literally left dance, walked into my agency, was like, see, I'm leaving, had no fucking idea what I was going to go do, but I just knew it wasn't that.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of taking this a whole different way from your question, but that's who Al is, and that's kind of like the start of my journey.
Which is amazing.
Him.
And I can attest to all of those things, like not wanting to do the thing that you've been doing your whole life up until now.
Yeah.
And this kind of like brings me into like talking about intuition and that you're not special, meaning that everybody can do this. And I like to think about this in two ways, right? Like you had these gifts when you were younger, at least that you remember. And I don't recall any of that when I was younger, but I do know that like people came to me for advice, or I used to be able to like feel energy and like understand what people felt without them telling me. But this wasn't something that I even like heard of, knew about until later in life. So for anyone that like wants to know like what intuition is, to like just explain what that is, and then the difference between like someone who just like naturally has this versus people who are like training in it to be able to use it to help people better their lives, essentially.
Totally. So I always explain intuition as like basketball, which is so random because I don't even like watch sports, but anyone can go dribble a basketball, but not everyone can go be in the NBA. To be in the NBA, you need a coach, you need training, you need skill sets, you need tools, you need to practice over and over and over again. You need to know, okay, if I go to this place on the court and I'm going to get the ball in the hoop and I'm going to get it every time. And so that's kind of like intuition. Everybody has intuition. Everyone has a divine right to have intuition. Like, you know how we have qualities of our parents?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't we have qualities of like the parent energy that created us in the first place? Like we do. We have the same quality of intuition and the all-knowing if we choose and decide to, tap into it. Now the difference is from a untrained intuitive or a psychic versus a very well-trained intuitive is an untrained intuitive or psychic. They don't know where they're pulling the information from. They could be pulling the information from someone's creator field and telling them that's what they have to live the rest of their life like. Well, the problem with that is if you're reading someone's creator field and they have a bunch of limitations, that's what you're going to read in the creator field. So I literally had one time someone come to me crying, the first time ever they came to me, crying hysterically. They're like, Allie, I'm never going to get married. I went to a psychic last week and she said I was never going to get married. I was like, okay, hold on a fucking minute. Like, let's look in. The psychic wasn't wrong. The psychic was just reading the wrong thing. The psychic saw her creator field. Her creator field was full of limiting beliefs, of these limiting lies of like, no one's ever going to love me. I'm never going to meet someone who like really understands me, like blah, 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 blah. But if I check in with her higher self, with her soul contract, I'm looking, okay, in her soul contract, literally like she is meant to be married and have kids anyway. It's in her soul contract. Her higher self's on board. And even if they weren't, even if she had like a weird soul contract of like, I'm not supposed to get married, you can renegotiate that and you can shift that and you can manifest that anyway. So either way, like she was going to be able to get married. And so that's the problem is psychics are just seeing and reading the untrained ones are just seeing and reading the first fucking things that come up. They don't know where they're getting it from. And for someone who's trained, it's like someone who goes to the NBA. It's someone who knows, who has a coach, who knows, okay, checking their form. This is the right tool. This is the right thing to ask. This is where you have to read this. This is where you have to, if this comes up, this is what you have to do. And so that's what I did. Now this girl's engaged. So we just looked at her creator field. We shifted her neural pathways, her subconscious. We shifted her energy field around the beliefs that she had, got herself more aligned with her soul and higher self potential, and now she's engaged. And so it's
Amazing.
like that's the difference between an untrained psychic and a trained psychic or intuitive, because they could also be reading dark forces or heavier energies that could be infiltrating the read if you're not knowing how to protect yourself and clear them off. So it's really important that even if you're going to do this, fuck doing it for other people, even if you want to do it for yourself, it's still important to know how to ask the right questions, and intuition's only as good as the questions we ask.
Yeah. And I would have never guessed that I would be doing this. And actually, when I first intuition was the first thing I did that in March of 2023. So I did the second read and then I went into intuition. So I was using my intuition. I didn't even know what it was yet because we hadn't gotten into that. I think I only had booked two like 30-minute reads. Yes. So they were pretty like to the point. But I saw on my Instagram, you had said, I'm hosting this intuitive course. And I remember like I kept being drawn to it. Like I remember I kept like opening up your stories to look at it. I'm like, I don't even know what intuition like really means. But I like was in Florida at the time, and I remember saying you were like one spot left. I was like, all right, fine. If tomorrow morning that spot is still open, I'm gonna take it. And like 20 minutes later, you were like, spots booked. So I was like, all right, whatever. I didn't think anything of it. I went to sleep. I woke up the next day and you were like, someone's energy like wants to be in the class. I'm going to open it up for someone else. I was like, oh my God, that is for me. So I like, the first time I took the intuitive course and I started doing reads, I really only felt things and I couldn't really like, get down the exact like read, which kind of ties into the like training piece of it. And you've taught a ton of people intuition. Has anyone ever not been able to like read?
Not once. Not once. Never.
Yeah.
Everyone has it. You just need the right tools.
Yeah. People always ask me like, well, how do I trust it more? Or like, do I have that? And it's like, yes, I literally a year ago, I learned how to do this and I'm fully reading people. Like if that doesn't prove that anyone can do this, and again, you can use it for your own life to just hack the system.
Yeah. No. And a year ago, I remember you like could only feel things at first.
Yeah.
And now, like literally 12 months later, I would send people to you. And like, I'm really fucking picky about who the fuck I would send people to under like my reputation that I've like worked hard on the 9 years to build. I would send people to you immediately. Like it's wild how if you really dive in and like train yourself, how much you can open up your gifts that were always there, but also know what to look for and what to ask to actually get to the root cause of something to actually shift it.
Yeah. And having a phenomenal teacher that literally taught me everything she knows, which is just incredible. Like just the total side note of you, like people want to hold back and like hide the things that they do and gatekeep it. And like you share everything and I respect that so much. And it's like, I feel like anyone else that learns from you will do the same because it's like, wow, I learned all the tricks, tips, details. Like I want to make sure that I'm sharing them too. So like just a like amazing note of if you ever work with Allie, like she will give you all the details. She holds absolutely nothing back.
Thank you. Well, that's like also an abundance mindset. And how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? So, and how energy is in one way is how it's going to be in other ways. So it's like, if you feel like, oh, I can't share everything I know because then people are going to take it and then there's lack and then more people are going to go to that. That is already, you're fucking your creator field. If I didn't talk about your creator field, it's just one big concoction of your thoughts and what you believe to be true. And then that creates what you get back in life. So 2, that is a massive lack mentality.
Yeah.
And then you're not going to create the business or brand you want anyway with that mentality either. And if you're doing that, then you're doing this work for the wrong reasons too.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
It's so true. It's like just another lens to think about like lack victim mindset of like really thinking. And I love when you always talk about like there's no competition. There's no like 2 souls had the same contract and whoever gets it first wins, right? Like it's that we can do the same thing and there's enough space for both of us to be able to do it.
We could be saying the exact same sentence word for word, giving the exact same tools, but because it's coming from Steph and because it's coming from Allie, because you sound the way you sound, you look the way you look, I sound the way I sound, I look the way I look, you have your life experiences, your stories, I have mine, it will resonate with 2 totally different groups of people or the same group, but they'll get different things out of it. Like it's there's no competition. It doesn't exist.
So good. Back when you were talking earlier, I want to talk about a few things. So you talked about soul pull. So like talking about like what that means, but in relation to like soul contract. And then I like to think about like how we have lessons in this lifetime that we're overcoming. So like explaining what that could look like, because people are always like, what's my purpose? How do I find my purpose? Like I even think back to myself. I was like, what's my purpose? I thought it was going to be this grandiose thing. And like little did I know, I just like needed to book a reading with you and like explore and heal and get to where I'm at. But it would be cool to talk about like what like your soul lessons are compared to mine as like this is what we're doing here, is to have that. And whatever it is that you're doing as far as your career goes, it's still going to like have these life lessons kind of like weaved through them.
Yes. Okay. So everyone asks me, they're like, what's my purpose? Thinking I'm going to be like, you're meant to be a star. You know what I mean? Which, you probably are. But that's not the destination isn't the purpose. The purpose is the trauma your soul chose to experience. The purpose is the thing that you're healing right now. The purpose is the lessons that you are currently learning to grow and heal through, because all of that then does get you to then making money through whatever it is that lights you up. But if I didn't, from 19 until now I'm 28, if I didn't spend 4 or 5 years of just fucking healing my own shit and learning my own intuition and really honing in on it, that was my purpose at that time. I wasn't making money. I wasn't out there like doing anything fucking not spectacular. In fact, people thought I was fucking insane. They're like, Allie, why the fuck are you leaving dance? You're booking work. You're insanely good. Why you're leaving dance to do what? Heal your trauma? You're leaving dance to what? Go be a medium? Go like channel? You know what I mean? People thought I was fucking nuts. And that was my purpose at the time, was healing the shit that was holding me back, was healing my self-image, was learning how to use my intuition, was learning how to reprogram my brain, so then I could learn what it felt like to feel like shit, so I could learn to feel like what it felt like to feel really good on the other side. And so I could get excited about then, like, I just had this natural thing of wanting to help other people. I wasn't like forcing myself because someone told me it was my purpose.
Right.
I was like, oh, my purpose right now is to shift and heal. Like if I would have told you your first session, go right now and make a podcast right now and go make a business right now, you would have been like, what the fuck? I don't know what the fuck to do it on. But if I just go, hey, like I can totally see you having your own business, and just kind of give you like little tools to like get there, your purpose in that moment is shifting that stuff, because that's building your business. Like me doing that for 4 to 5 years was me building my business, even though I wasn't like, didn't look like I was building a business. I was, because who the fuck am I going to help if I don't have my intuition trained, if I don't have my own self-image, and if I don't know how to like reprogram my own shit?
It's so true. And I'm realizing it like every week, something new, that like I am just figuring out myself. I am learning as things are coming up. And one thing for me was like about controlling a lot of things, like release and control. Like I love to take action, and like I like to like work really hard. So for me, it's like even now I'm in more of a like trusting energy of just being able to like be good with learning what I'm learning, taking the steps along the way, and like everything's unfolding as I continue to go along. So it's just like so amazing to understand that from one experience, but to also help people that it doesn't need to be this crazy thing. You're not behind, and that at any point you can heal some stuff from your past and continue to learn more about yourself. And that will then unfold kind of like the next steps that you're going to be taking.
100%.
So crazy. And we're talking a lot about like soul stuff, like soul pull, soul contract, creator feel, a lot of energetics.
Yes.
But there's a lot of like science behind the work that we do, and also just in general. If anyone is thinking about like what intuition is or how we think about like lessons in life, it really correlates so much to just scientific terms, to our brain, to our body. I would love if you can just like a few like key things that you think are important to touch on as it relates to like the scientific elements of the work that you do. Yeah. Because it is so important.
Yeah. So, okay, if you think about it, every single thing in this universe started out as a thought. So like this water bottle started out as a thought. This microphone started out as a thought. Like you had to think about it first. You sketched it out maybe. You sent it to a manufacturer. They built it. Now it's physical. If you have anxious thoughts, what happens to your body? Your heart races. Your shoulders shrug over. You shake maybe a little bit. You like feel dizzy. If you... if you get turned on, like what happens? You know what I mean? Like if you're mentally getting turned on, like other things happen in your body, right? So thoughts become physical really fucking quick. It's how the world works. And even in your body, if you've ever gotten anxious, you can feel it almost instantly within your body. So what happens is we start to have these thoughts of, let's say we are in 5th grade or not even kindergarten, and we go up to present a project, and we present a project and maybe we hear 2 people laughing. Maybe they're not even laughing at us, but we just decide they're laughing at us, right? We then all of a sudden get highly, highly emotional, and it starts to create these neural pathways in our brain. Okay, and the second we get emotional about something, that becomes like a very core, easy to find memory within us. So now we get emotional. Now we decide people are laughing at me. I can't be heard. I am not good at public speaking. I can't be taken seriously. So now we start to have this like thing going on in our brain, and it literally starts to build neurotransmitters and neural pathways in our brain, okay? So now we start to have this thought and this belief. Well, just like anything else that starts out as a thought, it starts to become physical. And it literally starts to shut down parts of our brain that would be a good public speaker, that would be taken seriously. We can't access those parts anymore because now we're so convinced that we're not. So now we grow up, and each time now we're presenting something, or we're even speaking, or we're even in a relationship and we're trying to say how we feel, automatically it's already programmed into our creator field, because all our creator field is one big concoction of our thoughts and what we believe to be true. So if we believe these things, now it's in our creator field, our electromagnetic field in scientific terms. That's the field that radiates off of our body, which, by the way, if you think we're physical beings, we're really not. We are made up of light. If I put my hands together right now, it looks like they're touching, they're not. If you took a really, really high-powered microscope and put it in between my hands, you would see that I'm not touching, actually. It's just a bunch of subatomic particles.
Yeah.
So we are just made up of light, and that's what the protons and neutrons, it all then makes our physical body. We are just slowed down matter, which is why we can see ourselves, essentially. So all of that stuff gets broadcasted out from our electromagnetic field. Now that's creating more situations where people aren't taking you seriously, more situations where you're not feeling heard. Maybe you're presenting a project at work and no one fucking cares about it. Maybe you're trying to tell someone in your relationship how you feel, no one fucking cares about it. Well, each time this just gets more and more and more solidified, and you just continue to prove it to yourself more. And not only that, on the energetic level, each time this happens, a piece of your soul or spirit self breaks off and it stays in all of these times. So now you're missing pieces of your energy. If you get to like 40 years old and you're not recovering your energy, you're missing about like 40 to 50% of your light body, which the neutrons, the protons of that makes up the physical body. So the more you start to miss pieces of your light body, let's say, so lungs is where you're not feeling heard. Let's say, okay, I'm not feeling heard here when I'm 5, and now I just keep recreating that situation over and over again. Now I'm 40, now you're going to start to have lung problems because the light body is in charge of creating the physical body. So that's kind of how I would begin to explain the science behind this kind of stuff.
Yeah. And even like when they say when you rub your hands together and you like pull it apart, you can feel the energy.
Yes.
It's like the perfect way to feel like, what is that? If you don't believe in energy, right?
Yeah, totally.
So you were talking about like the experience from when you were younger. And it just made me think about, so Allie has different types of meditations that you'll go through, essentially, or energy recoveries, where you will go back and find like a specific memory that comes up that's potentially blocking you in this current lifetime, that's causing some limitations that you have. And you talked about emotion. So I'm curious, like our subconscious brain in that, right, is pulling forward these memories that are coming up in that moment. Is it like it has to be like a specific thing, or it's like that just had a really high like emotional charge that is like a prominent memory that needs to come up that will help you kind of like unblock a limitation, like not, being heard, for example?
Yeah. It's going to be a prominent memory that you're most emotionally connected to, because when our emotions like spike up, that's what's going to make a memory, and that's what's going to make it really easy to find in our brain. So what happens is people spin their wheels in therapy. They'll go to therapy and be like, my boyfriend doesn't hear me. I just feel like I'm not heard in my relationship. Well, then the therapist sits there with you and you spin your wheels of like, how can your boyfriend hear you more? Like, do you need a different boyfriend? And we just run away. Or my boss doesn't take me seriously. Go get a new boss. Why are you doing that to yourself? Why are you working for them? Go get a new boss. No, we've got to go back to early on when that happened. And what I do is called an energy recovery. So you know how I talked about missing pieces of our light body? Well, we get those back. And we take out all the energy that we took on from other people and other things in that moment. We give it back to them. we get back pieces of our light body and give them back to ourselves. And that in itself dominoes affects every other time in every other situation where that's happened, along with, of course, doing the neuroscience and the brain reprogramming. But the problem is we are energetic beings in a partly physical body. We need both. We need 100% of the action and the physical, and we need 100% of the emotional. So, of course, the neuroscience and the brain reprogramming and the subconscious reprogramming, and like I will preach that all day long in my programs. But what we forget is pieces of our energy are literally still stuck there. So no matter how much you try and like move forward or fix the problem with your boyfriend, your brain is still running, the subconscious is still running the time when you were 5 and you felt like you weren't heard. And so you're just going to keep recreating situations, and you can break up with the boyfriend, move on to the next. You don't heal the thing of not feeling heard. You'll recreate the same situation over and over again. So that's why you can sit in therapy for 10 years with the same fucking problem, creating the same things. But if you would actually just learn to use your intuition, go back to where it first happened and do the energy recovery from there and reprogram it from there, then it domino affects every single thing else, and it stops the pattern. It breaks the pattern in your life.
Yeah, it's so good. And you answered a few questions that I had in there, because I feel like people will always ask me, like, do you just do energy work, or do you just do like Reiki? You know, people have had some like good work from it. And it's like, you're missing part of it, right? Like there could be an energetic healing that you have, but if you haven't reprogrammed your brain, we still have that. And our brain is going to work against us, right? The amygdala is like taking on the negative and it's looking for that as proof throughout. So like it is an important part of the puzzle that I feel like people do forget about, where it's like, you know, you wouldn't, if you were trying to get fit, you wouldn't like watch a video and then just like hope that you're going to get fit now because you watched it, right? Like there is a physical thing that you have to do.
100%. People are either doing the physical thing or they're doing the energetic thing, and no one seems to be doing both. And you need both.
Yeah.
You need 100% of both.
Yeah, so good. And you talked about like self-image a little bit, and you've worked with like actors and business owners. You worked with so many clients. Like, what would you say are like the key, like underlying emotional root causes that you see amongst people that are blocking them or causing limitations in their life or them feeling stuck? Like, what does that boil down to? Is it self-image?
Self-image.
Okay.
Self-image, which is the way people perceive themselves and the way people perceive that other people perceive them. And you'd think actors, oh, how do they get there? Like, you'd have to have a high self-image to get there. No, there's so many other ways to get there that they get there that way. And their self-image is usually in the trash can. And even one time, like it will manifest into their lives. So I work with someone and she got canceled, you know, and everyone was getting fucking canceled, which she should not have gotten canceled because it was so fucking stupid. But she came to me, and it was the first time she ever came to me. She was like, I don't know what I'm doing, Allie. Like, I am such a good person. I'm so nice to everyone. Like, I don't know what I did to deserve this. Like, what kind of karma is this? And I go, karma's not real. Like, that's not an actual thing. Soul karma is, but that's a whole different fucking story and has nothing to do with this. Karma's not real. It's not what I do to other people, they'll do to me, or how I be toward other people, they'll be to me. It's how I'm being toward myself, other people are going to be toward me. So I'm like, it doesn't matter. You can be the nicest fucking person on planet Earth. You can be like fucking Mother Teresa. But if you're not like treating yourself that way, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. So she was so heavy. Her levels of beating herself up were so high, like 98% for so long. And the acting didn't heal her. The booking the job on Netflix didn't heal her. All those things, they don't heal you. They amplify it. You think those things, those external things are going to heal you. They don't. They amplify how you already feel. This for sure amplified. Instead of getting like a few mean comments on a TikTok she posted, you know, she got fucking canceled on a worldwide level. And so it amplifies how you feel internally. And self-image is across the board the number one thing that I've seen that people need to shift, myself included.
Yeah. I mean, mine as well. And mine was like differently, the same, but it was like value oriented, right? Like fully seeing your value, which is part of like self-image, which like at first I was like, I love myself. Like I loved who I was, but I didn't really see my value and it was amplifying. Like I'm thinking about like super successful in sales. I was still closing deals often, but like there was this underlying thing that I needed to prove myself. I always had to like fight with an executive to like get what I was worth. Like I had to like prove to like yank it out of them. It didn't feel good.
Yeah.
Right?
No, it doesn't feel good. And no matter what you get, like, what are you going to do? Like cry in your fucking G-Wagon? You know what I mean? It's like these external things we get, like no matter how much money you were making when you were in that, no matter how much like other things you were buying, like it's a temporary Band-Aid for a problem that is within you and internal, and nothing external is going to find it. And you can't solve a problem from the same emotion you created the problem in. So meaning people don't feel worthy. And so they're like, oh, let me go get this thing, or let me go make that money, or let me go fight with this executive, or let me go do this from a place of not feeling worthy. Well, you can't feel more worthy when you take action from a place of not feeling worthy. So it will never work.
Yeah, it's so true. Like I can even just my shift in feeling the difference. And like I want to shift gears a little bit into like more about you and kind of just a little bit around like you've built an extraordinary business and it's been amazing to like at least watch from my standpoint. Obviously before we met, you've been doing this for like, 8 years before then. But when we first met, I think your session was like $200 and you were charging $5,000 per session, which is like incredible. You are like on a roll right now. And like, that's what people are seeing. But I would love for you to like talk about like up until then, because I feel like people start businesses, they fail, they give up, they don't see it in the physical yet.
Yep.
And that has to be hard, right? Like not seeing it, but like believing and knowing that that is freaking what your future holds. So like, what were like big lessons that came up? And like, was there ever a time where you were like, I just want to go back, like quit? Like, what was that like?
Oh my God, yeah. So what people do is they compare their day one to someone else's day fucking a million, or year 10.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. So yeah, for me, like from 19 to 23, I was just immersed in learning. I was immersed in healing my own shit. I was immersed in just becoming the best version of myself I could be, and we're always doing that, but like at the time, right? And I was like immersed in becoming the best intuitive that I could be as well before I charged anyone a single fucking penny for anything. And of course, like if I look at me when I was 24 and now I'm like, oh my gosh, that girl knew nothing. But at the time, I was accessing the best version of me for that time. So one thing that people don't get or see is that healing's like or doing anything's like a bamboo tree, shifting anything's like a bamboo tree. And if you don't know, a bamboo tree grows underground. You don't even fucking see it growing for like 5 to 6 fucking years. But it's planting these like long, thick, deep roots into the ground. Then one day out of nowhere, it just sprouts up like 50 to 60 feet out of what seems like out of nowhere, but it was growing underground. You just wouldn't know for like 5 to 6 years. That's what shit is. And if you want something sustainable, you've got to get your energy field, your creator field right to hold the density in a good way of what it is you desire. People who want shit so fast, it's not sustainable and they're going to lose it. You see anyone who gets stuff fast overnight online, and then where the fuck did they go a few months or years later? So for me, I just like spent years really working on not caring what other people thought of me. Because what happens is you care what people think of you, and you're like, oh, I got to make this money, I got to do this thing. Oh my God, I lived in a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment in North Hollywood. I shared my room, with 3 people. We had blow-up air mattresses on the ground. Me, Emma, and John. Then we had another room with 2 other people and another room with 2 other people. I shared a bathroom with 6 fucking people. And then from there, I moved into like my LA mom's house is what I call her. And at the time, she had no AC, no air conditioning because she was getting her whole house reconstructed. So I'm living in a reconstructed house that has no AC, no air conditioning, like in this little tiny room. People don't like, people want to succumb to that, or they don't want to have to go through that, right? There's 2 ways people go. People succumb to that lifestyle, or they just will do anything to avoid that lifestyle. Yeah. And so for me, I just have a lot of tenacity, and I knew like if I just keep doing this, and if I keep learning, and if I keep just doing what I love, and if I keep getting my creator field right, and if I keep learning the tools of how to get and create what I desire in life, and the more I do it, and the more I do it, and the more I do it, finally it's going to pay off. Well, in January I think it was December actually, 2019, I used to work for my friend's like spray tan mobile company, and I would do like the calls for, like I wouldn't go spray tan anyone, but I would do like the back end scheduling so I could do it from home because it was mobile, so I could do it from anywhere just from my phone. And I was starting to get some sessions. People, like word of mouth was happening at the time. And so like I couldn't always be on the phone, so I got fired. I would fire me too. I'm like a really bad employee.
I got fired too. It's okay.
It's fine. I've gotten fired from like every job I've ever worked except for dance jobs. So I'm just not a good employee. So I was like, fuck this. Like I'm just going all in on my business. Now, again, this was already like 4 years into me just healing my shit and learning my intuition. 4 years. And people want shit in 2 months. I'm like, you guys, it's just, if you want it sustainable, it's not happening. Not to be limiting, but like if you want to actually sustain something, it's just not how the laws of the universe work. So I, in January 2020, I probably make like $500. Shannon was like one of my, Shannon's probably the reason I made $500.
Yeah.
Paying me for all her sessions. February, probably again, like $500. And I was so fucking, I'm so fucking tired of this. I'm so fucking tired of this. And I just, at one point I was like, I'm getting my energy right around money now and around value in doing what I do. And I remember being in like, I was like at a restaurant somewhere, and I just remember being so fucking fed up with it. So I like get my energy right around money even more than I was already starting to. And then in March 2020, I made like $5,000, going from $500 to $5,000. And then June 2020, I made like $11,000. And then it was just like that or more, except there was a time when I first moved to Dallas, a few months into it, it declined. And I have a whole lesson of that, what happened there. But besides those few months, it's never then been lower since, outside of like a few months in Dallas. But it's insane tenacity and understanding that like Rome wasn't built in a fucking day. And I know like everyone says that, but like seriously, if you want your creator field to be able to actually hold things, and we can't compare ourselves to people who have all these careers because we don't know if they actually manifested them. A lot of people get careers because their soul chose that for them so that they could get a bigger lesson, so that they could learn, oh, the private jet and all this money was never going to heal my self-image wound with my mom. Or you know what I mean? Or was never going to make me feel any happier. I still feel lonely as fuck. I actually feel lonelier. And people get these things that people will say it's manifesting. People will say it's hard work. Maybe for like a few of them, but most people who you're probably, not you, but anyone listening probably comparing themselves to, their soul got them there for bigger lessons that was never going to heal them. So if you're like, yeah, but this person popped off on TikTok overnight, it was for other soul lessons, and they're gonna now have more problems. Like I can't tell you how many clients I have who have popped up on TikTok overnight and now have extreme depression and chronic illness and lupus and all these fucking problems, and are losing babies and are dropping their babies down the fucking stairs because of all these are like real stories. Because of all these reflections that are going on and happening, or like toxic mold, or like disease, illness, or all this stuff, and it's like, you can't outrun this energy. So it's like, yeah, maybe you're making a lot of money, but like, your husband's cheating on you, and your daughter is this, and you have Lyme disease. And so it's like people really need to learn how to lower the intuitive veil. And not that you need to like see someone's like shit going on to make you feel better, but just so you can stop comparing yourself and thinking that like they got it all going on. And that's what breaks people, is like, oh, I don't have it, I'm gonna give up now. And the second you give, like when you want to give up, you're almost fucking there, and so you can't give up.
Yeah.
You can't.
And it's so funny because I've experienced my own like lessons that I'm like loving them as they're coming up, and it also has allowed me to like chill a little bit, because you do at first are like, okay, I've been healing, I've been learning, I've been like taking all of this time to develop myself. And it's like, when is it going to happen? And that was actually almost making it worse. It was elevating my emotions, and it like was causing more lessons to come up that I was learning from. I'm super grateful for them now because it's like, great, that actually is getting me to learn them way quicker than extending that out, which does kind of like bring me into like time. And as we think about like collapsing time, and I have a few things on this, but when I first met with Al, he told me like I was going to get where I am right now in 9 years, but I could speed it up in 1 year. So I'm just curious, like explaining two parts to this is like what that means when someone like has something in their contract that no matter what is going to find them, it just may take a little bit longer. Like I could have met you and then not done the other work and like stayed there and then maybe got here later on having a realization. But also like you looking back at the time frame that it took you, like could you have also sped that up, you know, to get where you are now in a shorter period of time?
I could have totally sped it up because I was, really young. Like I was like 19, 20. Yeah. And I was like, what the heck, man? You know, like all of my peers are just getting to dance and do really well. But now I don't want to dance anymore. And I had this whole thing of being really stubborn of like, I don't want to go into like a career of being an intuitive. That's what the fuck? Like, that's so weird. That's so embarrassing. And so I spent a lot of years fighting myself, like kind of half in, like I would do the healing work on myself, but I could have, sped up my career quicker if I wasn't fighting myself so much. Now, again, I needed that to like do and learn what I am doing and learning now. Yeah. So like, don't like look back and like regret things because I don't, but I totally could have sped it up. And how you can speed things up is going, and it's using your intuition with your creator field, right? So let's say I wanted to go get a book deal. And let's say that in my soul contract, in 10 years, it was meant for me to get a book deal because my higher self knows us so well that it knows, okay, she needs to have this rejection here. She needs to have this rejection here. She needs to have this person tell her no here. The first rejection, she's going to then get more committed to her value. The second rejection is going to make her more committed to her authenticity. The third rejection is going to make her just so angry. She's going to say, fuck it, and like put her all into the book. And it's going to like all these rejections are going to lead me to these lessons I needed to learn to be able to get my creator field to hold the density in a good way of a book deal and it doing well and it being a bestseller. Well, if I have intuition, if I know how manifesting works, I can bypass every single one of those rejections by asking what belief system or what in my creator field right now would make someone say no to me. And I can go, oh, well, I don't see the value in myself. Okay, let me shift that. What else? Oh, okay, well, I don't see the full value in me being fully authentic in my book. Okay, let me shift that. And now what would have taken me 10 years because would have taken me 10 years to learn all these lessons, I can compress into 6 months or a year by just understanding what those were going to teach me, shifting it without having to go through that experience, and then I could get a book deal in a year. That's just like an example, right? I did this with COVID. So when COVID was going on, I didn't want to get it. Like who fucking would, right? Even though
I never got it.
You never got it?
No.
Well, you were never a match for it. So I love that for you. Great job.
So good. Thank you.
So I didn't want to get it. So I would always test intuitively, I'm an energetic match for COVID. Now, if I would get a yes, it didn't mean I would have it yet because you have to be an energetic match and an alignment for something to get it. They're two different things. So if I got a yes, I would instantly go, why? What emotion am I holding on that would make me an energetic match for this? Well, like the lung thing again, feeling like you're not heard. You get a headache, like being hard on yourself, right? So like what emotions am I holding on that would make me an energetic match for these physical symptoms? I would then go and shift my emotion before I would even have to get COVID to learn the lesson so I could bypass COVID every time. Now, the only reason I would have got COVID is to learn a lesson, the same lesson that I can learn without getting it. And so you can shorten timelines by using your intuition and knowing how manifesting and shifting and healing works. And you can see what the lesson was going to teach you. You can learn it without it, and you can compress the timeline.
I love that. And when we're thinking too about like, quantum jumping or like collapsing time as we're speaking of that, and your lesson of like, self-image that you have for this lifetime. And I feel like people think like, oh, great, I got my self-image down and now like I'm good, like I mastered it, but that is not the case, right?
No.
So like, can you explain like how as you've been leveling up, like how that lesson kind of like keeps coming back up in different areas of life or as you're continuing to grow? Because I feel like people are just like, all right, I did it. Now why is this coming up again?
Totally. It's like a video game. So it's like, and I'll explain it in my own life too, but it's like, once you hit level 10 self-image, maybe you hit level 10 self-image and like, oh, okay, like now I'm not afraid to post a story on Instagram anymore. Well, once you hit level 10, 10 being the highest in that level of the game, now you go to the next level. Now you're immediately at a level 1 again at the next level. So maybe now you have a really high self-image of being able to talk to your Instagram story. Well, now maybe someone asked you to go on a podcast. Now at level 10 dropped back to a level 1 because now it's a whole new level of self-image that you have to create for yourself. So it's never ending. So you might as well just fall in fucking love with the work now because people are so wanting to like, okay, I did this, now what do I get? And it's not what it's about. Like you talk about soul purpose and soul pull. If your main soul lesson in this life is self-image, which like mine is, fun, you will constantly be presented with new expansions, new levels, new areas of it. So like my first healing of self-image was just to like stop comparing myself. It was to fall in love with the attributes and qualities my soul chose. It was to stop wanting to change myself. It was to go, oh, Allie's a procrastinator. What's great things that come from that? Well, I light a fire under my ass. I get shit done in a really short amount of time. Like what takes people 5 days to do, I can do in 5 fucking minutes. Falling in love, not wanting to change. Then it was, oh, let me heal body image. And it was like healing an eating disorder. And then it was like, okay, now I have a good self-image just like, socially. Now it's like, oh, now I want to have a career. Okay, can Allie feel like she's an incredible intuitive? Well, let me now root to that. Okay, Allie feels like an incredible intuitive. Can Allie feel like her programs are the best of the best? Let me root to that. Can Allie feel like she's the best communicator? Let me root to that. And it's just like always new levels that present themselves over and over and over again. And the real but the real like shift for me in self-image was I could have a really high self-image if, this is fucked up, but like if I perceived that people around me, not true, but if my ego perceived that people around me weren't doing as well as me. Even relationships, like I would always end up dating guys in the past who like were not way older, but like 8 years older, 7 years older. And like I always somehow like was doing better than them. And I was like, why am I attracting this? Well, it's because I didn't have the self-image to be around someone who was doing better in my eye, who was, quote, doing better in my eyes, in my point of view, or who was even like, even a man who was making more money than me, that would have made me insecure. And so can Allie have a really high self-image and feel just as worthy and valuable, having clients who are making hundreds of millions of dollars. And, I was like 24 at the time, the first client I had who was making probably like tens of millions. I had to now have a high self-image of like that I can still help this person, right? And, and like the things that I'm good at helping them with. So there's always new levels of self-image and it's never ending. So might as well fall in love with it now because it's never stopping.
I'm experiencing it too on just like as I'm and mine's value, like part of self-image, and like I keep seeing it coming up in new levels and new lenses as I'm continuing to grow and evolve. So it's been just so interesting to like watch it happen, and I've been loving like seeing the new level of it come up. So it's been like insanely cool. At the same time, like you just kind of gotta like, we're gonna go with this and see what comes out of it and step back as much as I can.
Yes. Yeah, you have to see it as like a game. It's a game. And it's that's the purpose. That's your soul pull. It's not like, oh, I'm gonna like when I'm 90, I'm gonna be looking back and here's all the things I did. That's your soul pull, is like learning the lessons. Because the more you learn lessons, the more your soul raises in frequency and consciousness. And that's like why the soul's here. That's like the whole goal.
So good. I want to like switch to some fun questions.
Yes.
And I am like curious all about just like from a relationship standpoint, when we think about like masculine and feminine energies and like the balance of that and like the law of bubbles in the same like sense, because I was like very much in my masculine energy most of my life. And I've had to shift into my feminine, but Josh was in more of his feminine energy when we met. And when I shifted, he had to shift. So like, can you like explain like why that is?
Yeah. So the law of bubbles, we call it this because it's like, think about like giving people your bubbles. So you have 100 bubbles total, right? And the world has to be in balance. So then that's where the law of balance comes in. So in the third realm, which is what we're in, the universal law is there's a law of balance. So just like it's hot and cold, we're built on extreme opposites, right? Hot, cold, good, bad, right, wrong. Like everything's extreme opposites. So the law of balance is essentially that for everything that's good, there's an equal amount of things that are bad. And that's like how we balance that out. Now, where the law of bubbles comes in to play is, okay, so for example, if I'm alone, I'm my own universe. Like, and it's like, even if you think about relationships, like if Justin's not home, my boyfriend, I'm like killing the bugs. I'm like carrying my bags. I'm opening my car door. I'm carrying my luggage today to come here because he's not here with me. So I'm like doing all that. But then I'm also laying on the beach. I'm also like ordering Postmates from Air One. And I'm also in the feminine energy, but I'm doing both things. Now, when me and Justin are home together, we then become our own universe, the two of us. And because everything has to be in balance, if I want him to be in his masculine energy, I can't also be in mine, because with the law of bubbles, if let's say I have 80 bubbles of masculine energy, well, then he only has 20. And he literally physically cannot have more because of the science source energetic spiritual laws of the universe and how it works. So if I want him to be more in his masculine, I just have to stop fucking doing it.
Yeah.
So I don't have this problem with him, but there's other things I've had in other different relationships or even this relationship of like other things. But if I want him to be doing more, I have to just stop fucking doing it. Like if I am always planning something and I'm like pissed that he's not planning it, there's literally no room energetically for him to fucking plan because I'm planning it all. I'm holding about 80% of the bubbles, of the planning bubbles.
That was me.
Yes. So what do? You just got to give them your bubbles. You got to you got to stop doing it. They have no other choice but to then take on that energy. It's like if I were opening my own car door, I couldn't it'd be stupid for me to get mad at him for not doing it because I'm doing it. Like if I want him to do it, I have to not do it. I have to stop. I have to give him the car door bubbles.
Yeah.
You know?
It's so good. And I think about this too, like in just like why we have to focus on ourselves, like separate from it. But like when we think about reflections happening, I remember from one of our sessions, you had me break a reflection down of like how I felt my boss was being towards me. And I went through it and I was like, oh my God, I'm explaining me. Like I realized like right away that like I was doing that like towards myself, which is why it was reflecting and showing. And I bring this up because I feel like people are always like, well, I want them to do that and I want them to do this. It's like that I want them to plan. Well, you're planning. How are they going to plan? Or
Totally.
I want them to shift and heal. Well, what are you doing? You're literally pushing the energy and making them resist it.
That's the law of opposing forces. And that's what will fuck people up too. If you want people, because what people do, and this is with people or the universe or whatever the fuck, if you want somebody to, it's like, okay, here's an example. You know those families that they're like, no drugs, bad alcohol, no drugs, alcohol's bad. There's always someone in the family who fucking becomes a fucking alcoholic or a drug addict or some kind of addict. It's because the law of opposing forces and the law of bubbles are at play, right? You have one group of people so against one thing that someone else has to take on all the other energy, the opposite energy, because this universe is built on opposites. So, and on this and that and complete opposites. So also, then if everyone's denying in the same breath that they're an addict, right? I would never be an addict. That's horrible. That's bad. That's bad. Well, now they're giving all of their addiction bubbles to someone has to take it on in the family. So then that person takes it on. But if we were just to see that we are all everything, we're all addicts. I'm probably addicted to my phone too much. I'm addicted to probably eating healthy. Like I'm a little obsessive about it. I'm addicted to drinking out of glass water bottles. Like I'm also a little obsessive about it. Like if we can just see how we're all addicts, we would balance out the world on a collective level and no one would actually have to hold more of the addict energy because we're all denying those bubbles, right? We're giving someone else all of our addict bubbles because we're failing to see where we are because we're all everything.
Yeah, that's such a good example of it too. And I feel like talking about like neutrality is so important in two aspects. Like when you're manifesting and like seeing, both sides of everything, you're calling something in and being able to get neutral about it. But like also, I forget what I was going to say on the other part of neutrality. So talk about that and then.
Yeah. Well, neutrality, it's like, it kind of works with like the law of opposing forces. Like it's like how in a debate, you watch a debate, someone's so on one side, the other person's so on the other side. No one ever fucking hears the other person out ever. That's the law of opposing forces. If you actually want your way to win and you actually want to like get what you want out of the situation, you've got to get neutral about what the other person's saying and see how that would also be like the best thing fucking ever. So me and my boyfriend, Justin, we get into arguments about like, he does plant medicine, he does ayahuasca like twice a year. He goes on like plant medicine retreats twice a year. I refuse to do it. I won't do it. Well, I learned this with him is I'm so extreme of not doing it that he would then fight me and be so for it. Well, what I did is I started going, okay, why is it the best thing ever that he does ayahuasca? Why is it the best thing ever? And so I neutralized it within myself. And now it's not shoved in my face from him. He doesn't fight me on it. And he also doesn't fight me on my opinion on it anymore. And so it's like if you're so one extreme, people then have to be the so opposite extreme. And the people who are in charge of running the government and the right and the left, they know this. They know the universal laws, and you can use these for good or bad. And they maybe don't use them with the best fucking intentions. So they go, okay, if we get a certain group of people on this extreme side, then there's going to be this people on this extreme side, and it's just going to be this fucking like battle, and let's like fucking distract everybody with that. But if we could just all like see the neutrality in everything, nobody would have a fucking problem and like things could actually get done in your own life in a bigger scale, whatever it is.
Would you think that that's like a key that people are missing when it comes to manifesting things?
Yes, because people put all this shit on a pedestal. They forget that there's an equal amount of bad that comes with whatever they want. So it's like, okay, like TikTok followers, like someone's like, oh, wow, they want to manifest 1 million TikTok followers. I want it so bad. Well, the more you want, the more you're saying I don't have. And then the more you're not going to have it, right? I don't want this water. It's like fucking right here. So I have, you know what I mean? So what people have to do is they have to see the equal amount of bad shit that comes with 1 million followers on TikTok. You get canceled so much more easy. You go out and you make one fucking mistake and now it's on the internet and now everybody fucking hates you. You a tweet you made in 2009 gets resurfaced. You get fucking canceled. Like so many of these negatives come from also like the good things that can come from 1 million followers on TikTok. So what I do is I tell people to basically not want the thing that they want. Like, how do you not want it? And so how I even got myself to not want the business I have is, oh my God, I'm not going to have time to like work out as much. I'm not going to have time to focus on my body. Like, I'm not going to have time to like relax or rest. I'm not going to have time. And I would get myself to not want it. Money, I've been getting myself to not want. And when I tell you that shit has worked insane for me in this past like just 6 months, it's fucking wild. I have like I don't even know the exact numbers, but what we made last year and the whole year, I made in like 2 fucking months.
Amazing. Congrats.
Thank you. It's because of this. It's because I've literally made myself not want it. made myself not want it. And it's off a pedestal. I don't even I'm like actually almost more not wanting it than I am wanting it. And that's one of my big ways of how I manifest.
Yeah, it's like, it's such a key thing that people don't talk about because it's in this like sit and pray and I want this thing and I'm going to do these affirmations. And if I say like, I'm going to get $1 million and there's like these chants and these songs and like people are like waiting for it to come in and they haven't looked at both sides, and just neutrality in general is like so incredible. And it was like one of the bigger game-changing things for me in this work.
Yes. Well, and the spiritual world too, like it's duped. You've been duped by the spiritual world a little bit of like, oh, don't look at the negatives. Just be positive. Think positive. Think positive. Doesn't fucking matter what you're consciously thinking. Your subconscious is running a fucking program and it's creating, whatever that is, right? So even if you're like, oh, I'm so abundant, and your subconscious is going, no, bitch, like you're so fucking broke.
Yeah.
That's not how I do like things. I literally am like, okay, you want money? How can we get you to genuinely not want it, to actually emotionally connect, not just logically, but emotionally connect your heart brain? Because when we connect our heart brain, our emotions is when we actually shift. How do you connect yourself to actually not wanting it? And people are like, I tell people this and they're so afraid. People who have come from like other, TikTok of that's teaching random shit. Like they're like, oh my God, I'm so afraid to like not want something. Like, what do you mean? Like, I thought we were supposed to be positive. And I'm like, no, I want you to actually get yourself fucking afraid to have it.
Yeah.
Because then you'll get it.
And like on that note, how do you think of like negative emotions? Because it's the flip side is what we're talking about is like seeing that if this fails, how is it the best thing that ever's happened to you, right? Like that doesn't mean that's going to happen. It's just taking it off of the pedestal and that so that you can love it anyway.
Yeah.
And like I've had to go through these, but when we think of like negative emotions, like how do you think about that? Do you use them as like clues into things? Like how do you view it?
Negative emotions like
if you're upset, like because people, let's say that someone had a bad day and they, instead of like feeling the emotion of like actually accepting that they feel a certain way, they're like shove it down and they'll be like, well, I have a house that I live in. So God, you know what I mean? So I should be happy. But like, why is it that we shouldn't be gaslighting ourselves essentially into saying that we're not worthy to essentially feel the feeling that we have? They either identify with it or they shove it down. Like, how do you think about a negative emotion that someone can use that like to their advantage essentially?
Yeah. So the thing of like, oh, I shouldn't feel like this because I have a nice car or I have a nice house or whatever it is, or like trying to get grateful for something else, you are completely missing the lesson because the negative, quote, negative emotions, one, there's an equal amount of positive to them as there are negative because of the law of balance. So you're completely missing the lesson of what that's even trying to teach you, right? So I really can't stand when it's like, oh, I'm in traffic, but then it's like, then the person goes, oh, well, this is just teaching me patience. No. You're in traffic because you probably feel stuck in life, okay? So you've got to go into, okay, where do I feel stuck in life? This is here to help teach me something. But the problem is that people try and like bypass it with some just like typical like response that you would just hear anyone else say of like, oh, it's just teaching me to be grateful for life, or like, oh, I have both of my hands, or at least I can see while I drive. It's like, yes, it's great, but you're missing the lesson. And the lesson is if you're in traffic and you're pissed about it, not if you're neutral, but if you're pissed about it, you're stuck, right? You're experiencing emotion of feeling stuck in life somewhere else. Traffic's not the problem. The emotional root cause that manifested the traffic's the problem in the first place. So the traffic's there to teach you something. So if you just bypass it, shove it down, and go, oh, I'm so happy that I get to practice my patience. You're not. You're fucking pissed. Yeah. You're fucking pissed. And you're gaslighting yourself into thinking you're happy you get to practice patience, but you're still pissed because you're not actually looking at what the traffic's teaching you on the actual level of what it's actually teaching, why you've manifested it. Because nothing's a mistake. We've created everything that we find ourselves in, every person, place, situation, circumstance we find ourselves in, we've created it. So if you're pissed you're in traffic, you're pissed you're in fucking traffic. Be fucking pissed, let it out, and then look at, okay, I'm stuck in traffic. Where am I feeling stuck in my own life? You start to shift that. You then naturally, authentically get grateful that you're in traffic because you're like, oh my God, this just helped me see I'm actually feeling stuck in my business. Like, oh my God. And then I saw that I actually just need to like go and paint once a week, and that's gonna get me and my creative energy, and that's gonna help me be less stuck in business. Oh my God, I'm so glad I'm in this traffic. Thank you. But you genuinely actually shift it versus just like logically, consciously trying to be like, oh, I'm so grateful.
I was literally just thinking of stuck, like we're just connected here, because stuck, like feeling like you're stuck in life is like a root cause for inflammation.
Yeah.
And like inflammation is like the root of all disease from the health world, right? It's the starting place of that. So I'm like curious what you think about like when people come in and they're like, I'm stuck. Like, what does that even mean?
Oh my God, it could mean so many things. Like they just feel, it's never what's actually going on, it's how they feel. So it's like you could see them be like, you're doing fucking great, but they could feel stuck as fuck in these situations. So I'll look at, okay, where are they feeling stuck and why? And what emotionally do they need to shift in this to feel unstuck? And before even that, how can they get grateful for feeling stuck? Because before we even change anything, we've got to love exactly how it is. Like someone put a question box on Instagram the other day, and someone was like, no matter what I do, I can't seem to heal my fear of being seen. I'm trying so hard. And I'm like, fuck healing your fear of being fucking seen. Fall in love with the fear. Fall in love with it, that this is what you're experiencing right now and that this is what your soul chose to feel and experience right now. How is that the best thing that's ever happened for you? And she's like, oh my God, I never thought of it that way. Like I've been trying so hard. I've been wanting this so bad. And I'm like, no, fuck that.
Yeah.
Fall in love with why this is the best thing ever to happen to you. And then from there, you can shift it. But honestly, it's probably good to have, if you want to be seen, it's probably good to have a little bit of a fear of being seen, because if you don't want it, then you're going to get it.
Yeah.
People do the opposite. They're like, if you want to be seen, you have to heal your fear of being seen. You know how many people become fucking famous because they just don't fucking want to be?
Yeah.
Most people.
It's like, basically, it's like everything you've ever learned, crumble it up.
Crumble it up and throw it
away.
Away.
And we're going to do things a different way.
Yeah.
All right, we have like 5 more minutes. I want to ask about soul mates and soul complements.
Yes.
And then I'll just leave one final question, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, so a soul complement is, in the spiritual world, you've heard it as like a twin flame probably, but it's a little different. So the soul complement is essentially you in the opposite energy. So if you are dominantly in you're on a core level in your feminine energy, doesn't matter like what you've been conditioned to be, but like at your core, at your soul, if you're dominant feminine energy, your soul complement is like literally just the masculine version of you. Now what happens is that a lot of these relationships don't work because they don't have the right tools. So for example, Justin and I've looked in, and I've had other intuitive look in, and he's very much a soul complement for me. And if I/he did not have the right reflection tools, it would have never worked. It blows up in people's faces because they're you in just the opposite sex form, or not necessarily gender, but like the opposite energy form, right? So most of the time gender, but it depends. So because they're you, they are your biggest fucking mirror. 24-year-old me thought she was healed. I'm like, I'm so healed from my issues with men.
Yeah.
And then I met Justin, and then he triggered like all this other shit I had no idea that I was still like fucking mad about, or that I still had going on within me. And then same thing, vice versa. Like I triggered the fuck out of him. And so that's why if you don't have the right tools, it's not working. It's blowing up in your face and you're moving on. But when you have the right tools, it becomes the most beautiful, authentic, loving, like at home feeling relationship when you know how to navigate it using reflection work.
Is there only one of those?
You only have one soul complement, but you
Okay.
can have multiple soulmates.
Okay. And a soulmate is just reflecting in a different way, or?
A soulmate is more of a 4 out of 4 match. So it's a mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional match. You guys are like a match on all of those levels. And physical meaning like physical attraction, but also like to do the same kind of physical activities. Mental, like you can have stimulating conversations. Like emotional, you vibe emotionally. Like you ever or with someone you're like, we don't vibe emotionally, like you vibe emotionally with them. And then spiritual, you are like have the same kind of spiritual beliefs to an extent, or you like are really open and supportive of each other's. And so that's what like a 4 out of 4 is. And that would be like a soulmate. And we can have like usually like 1 to 4 soulmates walking around in our life.
Crazy.
Yes.
So fun. Well, this has been amazing. I want to leave with like one piece of advice that you would give to someone that like maybe is like skeptical in doing this work, or like why they should actually like invest in themselves and doing deeper healing work, why they should learn to hone in on their intuition. Like what is the like key thing that you would say to someone on like why they should do this?
Yeah. So I'll do the opposite and I'll go.
Love it.
You shouldn't do this if you don't want to elevate your life massively. And you asked a question there, and I wanted to answer it. Can you say that one more time? There was a question within the question.
I was saying like what advice you would give to someone if they like were skeptical about doing the work, or if they were like why they should actually invest in themselves.
Oh, that's what it was, investing in themselves. So for that part, like you're your own best investment. And if you're not investing in yourself, who the fuck is going to invest in you? Who's going to fucking pay you? Who's going to fucking want to commit to you in dating? Who's going to fucking want to value you and what you're saying or what you put out or what you're doing at your work or anything like that or anywhere? You're your own best investment, hands down. I mean, I had negative $562 in my bank account, and I paid for, at the time, it was $600 for a session with Al when I was like 21. And I paid for a session with him, and I went even more negative in my account to do that. I've gone negative in my account so many times just to invest in myself that then paid me back times so much, like tenfold. So that's my answer in investing in yourself, intuitively, of course, like if you feel like you're going to get a return on what you're doing. And then my thing is with like whenever someone asks me like, oh, how do I get my partner to do this work? What I say is I go, well, tell them how excited you are about it, and then go, yeah, but you probably want to be into it.
I used to like use that as a sales tactic. I used to be like, well, you can't afford it.
Yeah.
And they were all like, oh no, I think our business can. I was like, oh no, I don't think so.
Totally. Yeah, like, oh yeah, you wouldn't be into it.
So good.
So yeah, like if you're listening to this podcast, you obviously like are interested in this stuff, and I'd say follow that. Like follow that no matter what people are saying. Because if I would have listened to other people telling me to not leave dance, like I actually looked in on a different timeline of like if I didn't like leave dance when I didn't like pursue this, I would have been leaving dance just right now at 28. And then I would have gotten into this, and I would have been here probably 10, 20 years from now. So again, like tunnel fucking vision. And like if you don't want their life, like it's simple, like don't take their advice.
Yeah.
Or unless someone's like intuitively reading you, but I guarantee like your Uncle Joe and your next door neighbor aren't intuitively reading you. So don't listen to them.
So good. Oh my God. I'm like, I had 1,000 questions that we didn't get to, so we'll have to do another one.
We'll do a part 2.
Part 2. Thank you for coming. Anyone that wants to find Allie, you can go to allieninfo.com and go to her Instagram. She has so much free content. Like you could just go onto your podcast, your Instagram. Like you have so much free stuff. It's incredible like how much you put out there for people. So there's no excuse. And the Unfuck Yourself Academy is like the number one to get into if you haven't done any of this work. But if there's anything else that you want to say for people to find you.
Yeah, I mean, you did great.
Yeah.
We'll just link it in the show notes.
Link it in the show notes. Amazing.
Thank you. And can I just say something before we leave? Sure. I just want to hype you up on your own podcast.
I'll take it.
Just so you guys know, knowing Steph for the 2 years that I have, which feels like 10 in such a good way, she is the real deal. She is not fucking around. I would send people to her in a heartbeat. Like, you are in incredible hands with her. So
thank you.
I'm very excited for everything that you're doing and you'll continue to do.
Thank you so much.
You're
Means
welcome.
the world.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yay.
Bye.